So in this video, I will talk about what are some of the ways you can become a permanent resident in Canada as an international student. Upon graduation, what are some of the options available to you as an international student? And is it even possible to become a permanent resident in Canada while still in school? And which city is preferable? Which province is the most convenient in terms of getting a permanent residency? And which course should I really study to enable me get permanent residency in Canada? So if you have any of these questions, and definitely this video is for you, so make sure you watch this video till the very end to get all of the gist and all of the information regarding the easiest and the most convenient way to get a permanent residency in Canada. There are basically two ways that you can apply for permanent residency in Canada. The first option is going to be through what is called the express entry. Okay. The second option is going to be the provincial nomination. So I'm going to dissect all of this. I'm not a surgeon, but I'll try as much as possible to dissect each of them. Now, let's talk about the express entry. Now, for the express entry, it basically means you have to be on what is called a pool. Okay, so a pool, basically you submit your profile to the express entry pool, and then you fill in all your information, your education background, your credential evaluation if you study outside of Canada, and your English test and everything. You'll be in the pool. So with that express entry, there are three major categories for express entry, right? There is the federal skilled worker program, there is a Canada Experience Class CEC, and then there is the federal skills trade program, right? For the federal skilled worker program, even this is something anyone outside of Canada can get. Okay, so for the purpose of this video, I want to just talk specifically about how, as an international student, how you can get to do your express entry. Now, when you finish your program as an international student, you have to do your English test. You don't need credential evaluation if the highest degree is in Canada. Okay, if you have a diploma degree, for example, in Canada, and you have, let's say, a master's, if you want to get a master's if you want to get a point for the highest degree you have, which is the master's, you have to do a credential evaluation if that master's was not done in Canada. But if your highest degree was done in Canada, then you don't need to do an evaluation. Okay, the English test, as of now, it is compulsory. So whether you did an English test before coming to Canada, that one is going to be the general, but academic, right? For the purpose of the PRO, this is not going to be the general for the express entry. So you be in the pool. So the way it works is that when you're in the pool, they're going to ask you a lot of questions. So have you worked in Canada for 1 year? Do you have a foreign experience? So once you are in the pool and you fill out all of those forms based on the questionnaire, they're going to say, oh, you qualify for the federal skilled worker. That is, if before you came to Canada, you worked 1 year, you are already going to qualify for the federal skilled worker. And now if you further work 1 year in Canada, you are not going to qualify for the Canada Experience class. Now, how do people get their permanent residency even as a student? Now, if you're in Canada as a student, and let's say you've worked in your home country for about 3 to 4 years, and you already have a master's in your country, even while studying in Canada, although you've been in Canada and studying is not going to add to your point because it's not completed, but you can be in the pool for the federal skilled worker program. Okay, but for those that don't have any previous experience back in their home country, you will not be eligible for this. You have to wait to now work in Canada for 1 year, and after 1 year you will now qualify for the Canada Experience class. Okay, and then when they do round of invitation, if your comprehensive ranking score, so it's not automatic that once you finish your university of college and you work for 1 year, automatically you get a PR. No, it's going to be based on point in terms of your work experience, your English proficiency test scores, the highest qualification you're doing in Canada. You're going to get a point for all of this. Okay, and then if your score is above the cutoff for a particular time pool, let's say the CRS score, it's called comprehensive ranking score, for that draw is 480. and your score is 490, you're going to get invited. If your score is 460, even though you are in Canada, you've worked for 1 year, you're still not going to be invited until they do another draw and your score is now more than what is required. So that is how the Canada Experience class. Now, the Canada Experience class is no respecter of whether you are in Canada or you are outside of Canada. For the Canada Experience class, it is no respecter of the province where you are. So there is no advantage to be in Ontario or in Alberta or in Newfoundland when it comes to Canada Experience class, because you worked 1 year and that is it. So you're not going to get more points in the Canada Experience class because you're in Toronto or because you're in Newfoundland, because no, it is the same. Okay, the federal skilled worker, like I said, if you already have a previous experience and all that, you can do that even before you graduate. If you have maybe a master's degree in your country, you've worked for 2 to 3 years, you can actually do that. In a lot of time, people don't do research, so I encourage you, go to the CIC website and type how the express entry work, and read through everything, the eligibility for the federal skilled worker and then the Canada Experience class. Okay, so that is the first way to apply to get your permanent residency. Now, if you do a 1 year course, you're going to get a 1 year post-graduation work permit. So if you work after 1 year of working, you have to make sure you get a skilled job immediately after graduation, so that by the time you work for 1 year, you will now do your English test and all other things and open your express entry pool. By the time you enter the pool, they're going to do a draw. If they do a draw and your score is above the cutoff at that point in time, you're going to get selected. You'll be given invitation to apply before you now apply for permanent residence. So it's not automatic. Okay, so you still have to meet the cutoff. So if you do a 2 years program, you do get a 3 years work permit. So you can play around and then finally try to get a skilled job, and then when they do a draw, you will be eligible. Under the express entry, there is what we call the Provincial Express Entry category, which means that every province, if you are in the pool, there is a tendency for that particular province to invite some people based on the market demand, just based on the criteria that particular province sets. Okay, even for this provincial nomination, people get it outside of Canada. But if you study in Canada and you are in a certain province, there is more likelihood that province is going to nominate you through the express entry profile. So you need to have the express entry profile for the province to nominate you through the express entry profile. So how that works is, if the province nominates you, even though your score is 300 or 350 or 400, if the province nominates you, maybe you graduated from the province, now you've worked 1 year in the province, you are in the express entry pool, you must be eligible for either the federal skilled worker, the Canadian Experience class, for them to now consider you. Okay, now when they look at your profile, oh, this person is a civil engineer, we actually need more civil engineer. What happens is that the province is going to give you the nomination of interest, okay, NOI, and they give you that particular form and you apply. When it is approved, you are now going to have a provincial nomination. With that provincial nomination, if you add it to your express entry, you are going to have 600 points. So when they do a draw in the next express entry category, you are most likely going to be selected, okay, because your score is not going to be really, really very high. Okay, so that is the provincial express entry. If you're in Canada, you study, it's going to be good for you because now you can have more points. Okay, now each province have their own criteria, so I'll encourage you, read up the express entry requirement for each of the province before you actually apply for admission, so that you can think about if it's something you want to explore later on. Okay, so if you have a job offer in the province, it's going to increase your chance of being nominated. There are some provinces, they will say if you have a job offer at all when you graduate, for example, I think in Newfoundland, I don't know if it has changed now, once you have a skilled job offer and you graduate from the Newfoundland University or college, there is a high tendency that they're going to give you provincial nomination in the express entry. Okay, and there are some other provinces, they'll say you have to work for 6 months. Some will say you have to work for 1 year before they can nominate you. So it works differently for different provinces. Okay, so That is how that works. So the third option is what they call provincial nomination. Strictly provincial nomination. For this provincial nomination, you don't need to have an express entry profile. Okay, some of the chances that some of the things that increase your chances of being nominated by the province under the express entry category, under the provincial nomination, if you have a job offer, if you work in the province, you're resident in the province, that can increase the chance of you being nominated by the province. This is you don't need to have an express entry profile for this. You will still need to write an English test for this particular category, but just that it's more flexible. Okay, I know this is where a lot of people kind of start thinking about, in terms of provincial nomination, which province should I choose? So if you are very particular about provincial nomination, then the choice of the province becomes, I would say, kind of important, because every province is different in terms of how they do their provincial nomination, and the English score is really low. Okay, now there's what they call the Atlantic Pilot Program. Okay, for the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program is usually, let's say, the Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island. Basically, they're really looking for a way to retain people in these provinces, so they actually make their provincial nomination kind of easier. Okay, in fact, there are even some provinces, when you graduate and you get an offer, you can start applying like right away. You become eligible to get the provincial nomination. Okay, and Saskatchewan is also good with provincial nomination. Manitoba is really good, and Alberta is really good. Ontario is also good. The reason why sometimes people are kind of afraid of Ontario is because they have a lot of population. Okay, so the criteria and the score to get nominated through the Ontario provincial nomination might be high, because there's a lot of people. Consider the number of people in Ontario, Ottawa, and all of these places. So it might be a little bit competitive. So in terms of this, in fact, I've seen situations where people graduate from Ontario and then they move to Manitoba or to Saskatchewan or to Alberta, because they can get a job easily there. And when you get a job, then you will be eligible to apply for the provincial nomination. Okay, that's about it. Now, just know that, let me just summarize this. If you're applying for the Canadian Experience class, if you work for 1 year, it's a national thing, it's a federal thing. Irrespective of the province, you will be eligible if you work for 1 year and you work in a skilled job. Okay, and for the provincial nomination, it works differently for different provinces. And the last part, I did a video on this recently, the category-based draws. So for this category-based draw, is basically, based on market demand, right? Maybe those in science or agriculture or health, they can just do specific draws. So if you study a course related to these in Canada, agriculture, the STEM area, science, technology, engineering, medicine, and you have French proficiency, there is a chance that you're going to be invited in this category-based draw. So if you study a course in Canada relating to these and you have a job in this area, there is a chance that you're going to be eligible to be invited through this category-based draw. So if you don't get invited through the category-based draw, you still have the Canada Express class. If you don't get invited through that, you still have the Federal Skilled Worker Program. If you don't get invited through that, you have the Provincial Nomination Express Entry. If you don't get that, you still have the last one of all, the Provincial Nomination. Though it takes some time for this to be processed. I've seen situations whereby people apply for the Provincial Nomination, and then maybe for some reason they now qualify for the Canada Experience class, and then that usually gets processed faster, and then they get their permanent residency. So I will tell people, don't overstress yourself about permanent residency. Do your research, know what option is available to you. Do your research even before you graduate, so that you can know what are some of the options available to you, and then you can start planning towards that and think, what do I need to get qualified? And then you can start doing those things, making sure you prepare yourself to be eligible. So if you have any other question about this whole process, leave it in the comment section. And if you're not sure of which province or whatever, just leave a question or the comment in the comment section. I will try to address that. So if you've enjoyed this video, why don't consider liking this video, and then if you haven't subscribed, this is a perfect time to subscribe so that you'll get notification whenever new videos are released. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video.